The chamber wasn't built for comfort. It was a coffin of steel and glass, humming with invisible death. Glowing stones pulsed behind the reinforced walls, each heartbeat spilling radiation strong enough to unravel flesh. The air shimmered faintly, like heat haze, though the room was cold as a tomb. Cadets stood in line, their suits hissing and sealing, armor clamped down over scales, feathers, membranes, entire species disappearing behind containment shells of alloy and filter foam. Helmets locked with final clicks that echoed like execution bells. The instructor's voice boomed. This is the trial of endurance, the trial of silence, the trial of radiation. Stand, and prove you are more than fragile skin and bone. Fail, and leave knowing your limits. A nervous hiss of breath filled the comms. The countdown began. At the very back of the line, the human hadn't even touched the suit waiting on its rack. He just smiled. Tyler Brennan stood with his hands in the pockets of his academy fatigues, sleeves rolled up to the elbows. He squinted through the observation window, shielding his eyes from the eerie blue glow bleeding through the protective layers of leaded glass. Initiate containment sequence, the instructor commanded. Massive steel doors sealed with a hydraulic growl. The radiation stones brightened, flickering rhythmically as if breathing. Walls shifted, narrowing slightly, locking the cadets in. Warning sirens pulsed like a heartbeat. The chamber vibrated as the radiation levels surged. Readouts on the instructor's console spiked into amber, then red. A harsh voice intoned through the intercom. Exposure beyond 60 seconds will result in cellular collapse. The cadets advanced in single file, each heavy footstep followed by a metallic echo. Suits adjusted pressure automatically. Ventilators whirred to filter and cool. Internally, heart rates were already climbing. The trial had begun. Cadet Sarian from the Tizol axis was the first to enter. His suit gleamed, a masterwork of overlapping plated alloys, and his feet moved in short, deliberate steps. He chanted softly in his native tongue, a ritual to still his mind. Radiation was sacred death on Tizol. Every step was a prayer. Behind him, Irvo of the Arzek swayed nervously, gripping the handles of his chest rig until his claws left dents in the metal. He'd failed this trial once before. This was his final chance. By the time the third cadet stepped inside, the radiation had already climbed into lethal zones. The instructor noted the readings with professional dispassion. At this point in the trial's history, 42% of first-timers failed, 4% suffered permanent damage, 1 in 27 didn't walk out. Maintain posture, the instructor barked. Inside, cadets began to falter. The floor trembled beneath their feet. A muffled groan came from one of the suits. The internal readouts of Cadet Inari's containment shell flickered erratically. Instructor, my shield integrity is dropping. Adjust coolant valves manually. Breathe slowly. A second alarm chirped. Another cadet knelt, suit vents hissing aggressively, internal core struggling to keep temperature below critical. Already the trial was showing teeth. The chamber, with its deathlight stones and predatory hum, pressed down on them all. Except the human, who was still outside, still smiling. You are not permitted to observe unsuited, the instructor said sharply. Return to staging or enter properly equipped. Tyler folded his arms. Actually, I'm next. A chorus of distorted laughter buzzed across the cadet comms. Irvo's voice cut through with disbelief. He's insane. He'll be ash in seconds. The instructor frowned. Human, this is not optional. The suit is mandatory. This trial is not designed for... But Tyler had already stepped forward. No thanks, he said with a shrug. I tan easy. Gasps erupted from within the comms. Even the medical officer on standby jolted in place. The sealed chamber doors opened just wide enough to let him in. He walked casually, the radiation meter in his path turning a furious red as he passed. Every alien cadet inside watched, frozen. The walls groaned again. A blast of heated air rolled off the glowing stones and met his skin. He squinted, rubbed his arm once, and muttered, Damn, think I'm getting a sunburn. Then he laughed. A single chuckle, light and completely misplaced in a chamber meant for death, it echoed like a heresy. Readouts spiked again. The human's vitals were stable, too stable. Instructor, the medic said, voice unsteady. The human skin temperature has risen, but there's no cellular breakdown. Blood oxygen, normal. Heart rate elevated but within safe range. DNA remains stable. Radiation absorption minimal. That's not possible, the instructor whispered. Inside, Cadet Saurian staggered. He walks through fire like it's nothing. No armor, no chant, not even goggles. Who is he? Ervo leaned against the wall, visor fogging. What did they evolve from on Earth? Radiation serpents? Feels like tanning weather, Tyler called out. Anyone got sunscreen? Even in their suits, the cadets could feel the pressure increase. The heat, the buzz behind their eyes, the nausea of cells rebelling inside their bodies. Nari collapsed outright, emergency stabilizers locking his limbs in place. Another cadet lost control of his suit's coolant system. Only the human was moving freely. The chamber lights dimmed briefly as power rerouted to keep containment stable. On the main monitor, a full-body scan of Tyler displayed glowing red patches across his forearms and cheek surface burns. "Give me 3 minutes," Tyler said, raising a finger. "If I'm not dead by then, you owe me lunch." 3 minutes passed. 5. At the 8-minute mark, the trial auto-terminated for safety. Cadets fell back through the reopened doors, suits steaming and limbs trembling. Nari had to be lifted by the emergency med drone. Tyler walked out last, rubbing his arm with a wince. "Okay, yeah," he muttered. "That's gonna sting. Should have brought aloe." Silence blanketed the corridor. One of the instructors stood frozen, helmet under one arm, eyes locked on the faint pink hue across Tyler's skin. "You passed." "I didn't know it was a pass-fail," Tyler said, shrugging. "Honestly, I thought it'd be worse." The medical officer pulled him aside immediately and scanned the burn. First-degree superficial. UV exposure with mild thermal compound overlay. It'll redden, blister slightly, then flake in about 3 days. Keep it moisturized. No open wounds, no internal damage. "That's it?" the instructor said flatly. "That's it. That's it." Tyler grinned again. "Guess it's just a sunburn." Behind him, the cadets lay in cooling stations, their suits being peeled away in groaning layers. Sweat pooled inside cooling vests. Muscles twitched uncontrollably from stress. A few were on IV fluids already. Sarian stared through a portable oxygen mask. "How do you survive it bare-skinned?" Tyler glanced at him. "Oh, we don't, not for long. High enough dose, yeah, we die like anybody else. But short exposure? Couple minutes? We get burns, skin peels. DNA gets a bit messy. But we've got built-in repair systems. We evolved with a big burning skyball hanging over us. Adapt or crisp." Sarian's eyes didn't blink. "We fear radiation like fire. It unravels us." Tyler looked around at the others, watching him like he was a living paradox. Humans just call it sunshine. The instructor did not log Tyler as a participant. Instead, in his report, he wrote one line. "Do not provoke humanity. Their weakness is not where you expect it." 1. The infirmary was always quiet after radiation trials, except for the low hum of decontamination systems and the occasional dry retch from someone trying to hold down electrolytes. Saurian lay on a recovery cot, suit peeled halfway down like cracked armor, pale membrane blotched with heat trauma. His visor had left a faint ring around his face. Beside him, Inari's arms trembled involuntarily. He stared into nothing. Across the room, Tyler sat with a saline IV lazily dripping into his vein. He'd refused the stretcher. His skin glowed an angry pink along the arms and neck, and he held a cold pack against his shoulder like he was nursing a sports injury. A medical technician scanned his vitals for the 5th time in as many minutes. "You're sure you're not experiencing nausea, headache, tingling in your fingertips?" "Just itchy," Tyler said. "Which, if I remember my Earth biology right, means it's healing. I might start peeling tomorrow." The technician stared at him, stylus trembling in hand. "Peeling? As in dermal flaking?" "Yeah, sunburns do that. Dead skin makes way for new skin. It's gross but kind of satisfying." Saurian turned his head, voice rasping. "You are regenerating?" Tyler looked over. "Regenerating's a bit strong, more like sloughing off the crispy bits. The door hissed open, and the trial's lead instructor entered, followed by two xenophysiologists. The taller one, a gray-furred Mikari, carried a data tablet with Tyler's scans flickering across it in rapid sequence. "Instructor Gelvok," Tyler greeted, raising his ice pack like a toast. "You look like a man with a lot of questions." Gelvok's jaw flexed. "You should be in critical condition." "I'm not." "No, you're not." He turned to the xenophysiologist. "Tell him." The Mikari cleared his throat. "Your genome contains several mechanisms for radiation resistance, none of which were flagged during your intake because they were ordinary, in humans. We call it melanin," Tyler said, "plus some good old cellular repair enzymes. Nothing fancy." The other alien, a Yulzon biogeneticist with spiraling ocular ridges, leaned forward. "Your skin doesn't prevent radiation entry, it simply manages the damage." "Yeah," Tyler replied, "we absorb it, take the hit, then rebuild." Gelvok's eyes narrowed. "So you burn?" "Yup. And then?" "We heal. Depending on the dose, it takes days, or longer if it's bad. Really bad, and it turns into skin cancer 20 years later. But a few minutes of hot rocks, I'll be fine." The Yulzon shook his head in disbelief. "Your species doesn't avoid radiation, you tolerate it." "We had to. The planet's full of it. Cosmic rays, solar flares, background radon. We even built machines that split atoms open, and we still show up to work." Sarian tried to sit upright and winced. "You built cities around radiation?" "Yeah, it's called nuclear power. Though you really don't want to tan too close to those." No one laughed. The instructor remained silent for a long moment. Then he tapped the data tablet, flipping to another screen. "Explain this." It was a scan of Tyler's forearm at timestamp 0, then again at 10 minutes. Then 20. Microscopic cellular images showed minor disruptions in DNA helices, then realignment. Fluorescent tagging indicated a rapid spike in a specific enzyme family. "DNA repair pathways," Tyler said, pointing. "We've got at least 7 known ones. One kicks in automatically when the cells get stressed. Another when UV hits." The Mikari's fur bristled. "But your cells correct themselves. You don't just survive, you undo the damage." "Not always cleanly," Tyler said. "Mutations happen, but enough for a sunburn? We got this." Gelvok's voice dropped a pitch. "Are you telling me your species evolved under constant radiation pressure?" Tyler nodded. "The sun never goes away." Silence again. Every alien in the room stared at him like he was an evolutionary contradiction. Not impervious, just maddeningly adaptable. "Then why the containment suits and other missions?" Gelvok challenged. Tyler scratched the edge of his reddened bicep. "Because we're not suicidal. Gamma bursts, neutron pulses, reactor leaks, we suit up for the heavy stuff. But ambient UV and subthermal radiation, that's beach weather." Sarian exhaled sharply. "You treat death as a seasonal inconvenience." "No," Tyler said, serious now. "We treat it like Wooded Island dangerous, but not always immediate. It buys us time. That's the difference." One of the xenophysiologists stepped aside, fur still twitching. "Time," he murmured. "That's the part we never had." Neri spoke up for the first time since leaving the chamber. "You joked." "In the chamber?" Laughed. "Yeah," Tyler said, sheepish. "Sorry about that. It was nerves." "No," Hinari said. "It was terrifying." Tyler blinked. To see someone laugh? To see someone survive? He looked over at the burns still glowing faintly along Tyler's arms. "We were told it boiled blood, that your brain would rupture before your breath stopped, that this trial sorted warriors from corpses. But you?" "I just got burned," Tyler said. "And I'm really gonna regret not bringing sunscreen." Outside the infirmary, the trial instructors huddled in private chambers. Whispered reports began circulating. Not that the human was invincible, but that what he could endure, they could not. That their trial, sacred, absolute, had failed to account for something as mundane as a walk in the sun. Later that evening, Tyler lay on his bunk, shirtless, a film of aloe cream glistening across his scorched shoulders. The peeling had already started in thin flakes. He ran his fingers across the reddened skin and laughed softly. 3 minutes in hell, he muttered, and all I got was this lousy sunburn. The others were still in recovery for another 2 days. And in the academy records, beneath the logs of vitals, failures, and trauma reports, a quiet new file had been added under restricted access. Human biophysiology. Observation alpha. Tolerance to radiation in humans is not due to strength, but cellular strategy. Damage is expected, managed, repaired. The danger is not in what harms them. The danger is in how much harm they can take. 2 days passed. Sarian could finally stand without bracing against a wall. Nari's tremors had subsided enough for him to grip a spoon again. The medical ward returned to its usual background hum, and the cadets were slowly released back into training routines except for one. Tyler walked back into the cadet commons that third morning, a peeled strip of sunburnt skin curled between 2 fingers like a bizarre trophy. "Anyone want to see something disgusting?" Irvo recoiled visibly. "Put it away." "Suit yourself," Tyler said, flicking it into a biobin and grinning. Most of the cadets shifted uneasily. He had returned with the same casual gait, same crooked smile, only now there was a shimmer of unease that followed him like an invisible field. The incident had spread. Not officially, the instructors were careful about that, but the whispers leaked through every hall, commissary line, and training arena. He laughed inside the radiation chamber. He got burned, not boiled. They call it a sunburn. It peels. What was once horror had become a quiet, nagging fear. Tyler's survival hadn't just defied expectations, it redefined them. If the trial of silence, the most grueling endurance test in the Interspecies Academy, had failed to even stagger him, what else could humans endure? Cadet Men, a stocky Chaxorian, voiced what many were thinking during a xenocultural ethics seminar. "If mild radiation just burns them," he said, glaring toward Tyler, "what would it take to stop them?" "Rady." The room fell into an awkward silence. Tyler didn't respond at first. He was focused on delicately pulling off another flake of dead skin from his forearm. "Well," he finally said, "getting shot tends to do it." A few cadets shifted nervously. Sarian, sitting nearby, tilted his head. "You've been shot?" "Twice," Tyler replied casually. "One through the thigh. That was a mess. Took 6 months and 3 surgeries." "And you lived," Wren said, tone flat. "Barely. Almost lost the leg. Got lucky." "You're smiling." "Not because of the pain," Tyler said, sobering. "Because I remember walking again after 3 months of physical therapy. First 10 steps hurt like hell. But I took 'em. That silenced the room again. This time with a different quality. Not fear, not reverence. Something like confusion." Sarian leaned in, quietly. "Is that what it is? Human strength? The pain tolerance?" Tyler shook his head. "Pain tolerance doesn't make us strong. What makes us strong is that we expect the pain, and keep going anyway." By the end of the week, Tyler was cleared by medical. His skin had returned to a pale tan, with a few stubborn flakes still lingering on his shoulders. But the more noticeable change wasn't physical. It was environmental. Cadets didn't just glance at him anymore. They tracked him. Conversations dipped in volume when he entered a room. During joint drills, he wasn't challenged as frequently, not out of respect, but caution. And it was getting to him. "I think I broke the vibe," he muttered one evening, sprawled on a bench by the training grounds. "You did," said Sarian, joining him, spectacularly. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to make a point." "You didn't need to," Sarian replied, gazing at the evening sky. "That trial has shaped every academy class for generations. We trained for it since childhood. Stories of cadets collapsing, ancestors who didn't make it. It's a ritual of suffering." Tyler exhaled slowly. "And I laughed." Sarian turned to him. "That's what changed it, not the survival. The reaction. You treated our greatest challenge like a mild inconvenience." Tyler sat up, face serious now. "It wasn't an inconvenience. That burn hurt. I was dizzy the whole time, still nauseous for an hour after. I took an IV. Got treated. Just because I laughed doesn't mean I wasn't hurting." "Then why did you laugh?" Tyler scratched the back of his neck. Because I was scared. I needed something. Humor it's a thing we use. To push through. Sarian blinked slowly. Your species masks fear with laughter? Sometimes. Crying too. Honestly, we're emotional train wrecks. That got the first honest laugh from Sarian. Soft, brief, but real. Later that night, Gelvok stood in the instructor review chamber, observing a replay of the trial footage. Tyler's entry into the chamber was analyzed frame by frame, readouts scrolling alongside his movement. Body temperature, heart rate, cortisol levels. They read it as defiance, said one of the other instructors. Gelvok said nothing. But it wasn't. It was fear. Fear covered in sunburn and bravado. Which makes it worse, Gelvok finally said. He wasn't posturing, he was coping. The instructor leaned back, then typed a new line into the training doctrine draft. Be wary of species that do not flaunt strength. Be terrified of those who endure quietly. Tyler, meanwhile, found himself approached the next day in the training courtyard by Ervo. You should know, Ervo said, arms crossed. Some of us now wonder what your limits actually are. Ah, Tyler said. You worried I'll shrug off a grenade next? I'm worried we'll assume you can't. There was nothing sarcastic in Ervo's voice. Just wariness. We train to identify weakness, he continued, to recognize fatigue, thresholds of endurance, if yours are simply different. You'll make bad assumptions, Tyler finished for him. Yes. Tyler offered a small nod. Then ask. Always ask. Don't guess. It was the most serious moment the cadets had seen from him, and it landed. That night, the Xenophysiology department issued a memo. A minor update to all interspecies training programs involving humans. It read, due to unique evolutionary history, humans exhibit atypical response to short-term radiation exposure. While biologically vulnerable, behavioral patterns mask distress responses. This has led to fatal underestimations in past interactions. Observation protocols updated. Interrogation of human condition should not rely on external appearance or humor. Pain is present. It is simply worn differently. Across campus, holographic billboards had begun displaying new safety posters. The human department didn't know who ordered them. One read, just because he's laughing doesn't mean he's fine. A cartoon Tyler beamed under a giant sun with his arms blistering. Another, radiation exposure level, lethal to all but Earth's sarcastic apes. Tyler saw them the next morning, face buried in one hand. I need a transfer. Nari passed by, still in a neck brace, and offered a faint thumbs up. I like the one where your skin falls off. Tyler groaned. The Academy auditorium hadn't been this full since the cross-species accord debate. Every cadet, instructor, and medical officer was in attendance. Some stood against the walls, others balanced on railings, their bodies packed tight like scales in a pressure lock. The atmosphere buzzed with quiet anticipation, not fear, not reverence. Something more volatile, curiosity mixed with disbelief. On stage stood Tyler Brennan, utterly out of place in a formal jumpsuit that didn't hide the last patches of healing sunburn on his forearms. A single data pad blinked in his hand. Behind him, the projection screen read, Human Resilience, a Clinical, Cultural, and Unfortunate Overview. Sarian had suggested the title. Tyler added the last word. He cleared his throat. All right, so, I've been told this presentation is mandatory now. Muffled laughter rippled through the hall. He waited for it to settle. Let's get the scary part out of the way first. I'm not radiation-proof, not invincible, not immune. That sunburn you saw? It was the result of an incredibly reckless decision that could have gone bad in about 12 different ways. And just because I walked out of it, doesn't mean I should have. He tapped the data pad, bringing up a time-lapse of his skin from trial to present. It showed the burn bloom red, then fade into pink, then slough away. My epidermis took damage. My immune system triggered inflammation. DNA repair enzymes started the moment I stepped out of the chamber. That's the human trick. Not invulnerability, not fearlessness. Repair. A second image came up. The 7 known DNA repair pathways unique to Earth species. Colored lines traced the cellular mechanisms in real time as exposure simulations ran in the background. We evolved under a sun that doesn't take days off, so we didn't build avoidance. We built response, inaccurate repairs, redundant backups, and when that fails, cancer. We pay for our exposure. We always have. Days. Another pause, another click. The screen now showed ancient Earth architecture, Chernobyl, Fukushima, Hiroshima cities, either destroyed by radiation or rebuilt despite it. We built homes in fallout zones, cleaned nuclear sites, fought wars with uranium-tipped weapons, then patched ourselves up, cursed loudly, and kept going, not because we're stronger, because we're used to hurting. A quiet shifted in the crowd, not gasps this time. Thoughtfulness. But here's what you need to understand. That ability doesn't make us safe. It makes us dangerous to assume about. He let that hang. We bleed, we break. Sometimes we cry when it's cold and stub a toe. But if you assume a human is fine just because they're standing, you're gambling. We'll joke through a migraine. We'll laugh while nauseous. Some of us would crawl out of a crater and still ask if you want coffee. The auditorium was dead silent. Tyler stepped down from the platform and leaned on the edge of the stage. I didn't laugh in that chamber because I felt powerful. I laughed because I felt scared. Because every step inside felt wrong. Because I knew I couldn't outrun what was hitting me. I made a joke because if I didn't, I might have frozen. He looked across the room, past cadets still bandaged, past instructors still reviewing protocols. That's what resilience looks like, for us. Not some glorious defiance of physics, just a messy, stubborn refusal to lie down. One final image filled the screen, a close-up of Tyler's burn from the second day, blistered, glossy with medical cream. No filters, no drama. We hurt, we heal, we try again. The applause didn't start immediately. It took a moment for anyone to move. Then, scattered claps built into a steady rhythm. Sarian stood first. Then, Nari, arms crossed, gave a single nod before joining in. Eventually, even Gelvok clapped, expression unreadable but eyes focused. After the talk, a dozen cadets approached Tyler in the corridor. Not with awe, with questions, real ones. How long does your skin take to regenerate? What's the threshold for lethal exposure on your planet? Do you laugh every time you're injured? He answered each, seriously. He showed pictures of his burn healing, of past injuries, of old scars. He explained what sunstroke felt like, how dehydration affected cognition, how PTSD wasn't uncommon in his culture. He never used the word invincible. That night, back in the dormitories, Tyler was packing a med kit with burn cream when Sarian stepped into his room uninvited. He held a small wrapped bundle. "What's that?" Tyler asked. "A ceremonial skin token," Sarian said. "Traditionally, it's given to those who return from sacred trials. Acknowledgement of survival." He paused. "Yours is made of synthetic skin polymer. I figured actual epidermis might be too weird." Tyler laughed, genuinely. "Thanks," he said, setting it on his shelf. "That means a lot." Sarian hesitated by the door. "One more thing. You've changed the trial now. It won't ever be the same." "I didn't mean to." "But you did, and that's fine. Just don't forget that for most of us, it's still death." Tyler nodded. "I won't. And for what it's worth, I'll never walk into one of those chambers again without gear." "Good." The door shut gently behind him. 2 weeks later, the Academy quietly updated its training doctrine. Trial of radiation, clause amendment. Species-specific protocols now permitted for environments with non-universal lethality. Behavioral indicators must be cross-referenced with biological tolerance baselines. Addendum. Human endurance is not resistance, it is the discipline of surviving damage, not escaping it. Instructors reviewed it, cadets learned it, and over time, the memory of the trial became less about one human defying death and more about the limits of assumption. Tyler still peeled once in a while, still winced at sunburns, but every time he caught someone staring, he'd raise his eyebrows and grin. "Don't worry," he'd say, "I brought sunscreen this time." And though they still feared the chamber, the cadets now feared something else more. Not the pain itself, but the species that treated it like a fact of life and laughed, anyway.